my training was field artillery. That was my training. The system at the time, this was a 240 millimeter outfit, and you had to learn every position. There were something like 20 positions. And that was your basic training. And when that was over, then you waited to be shipped overseas. The bombs, the shell was about this high. So you had to have special people take care of those some distance away from your gun. And then you had people who were carrying these things. You needed 4 people to carry this weapon. It weighed 365 pounds. And so you had 4 people that carried this thing. You had a tray with four handles. And so you had 4 people there. You had engineer to calculate your settings of your gun. And then you had a lanyard man who waited for the signal to fire and then pulled the lanyard. And all of these people, this was a big gun, so there were stations on the gun to set all this stuff. And that was it. And you had to learn all those positions. And before going, they had a trial to where the battery commanders assigned each one a number so that he could see how well you could cope with every position if you had to do so.
Now, 240 millimeters, that's a big gun.
That was the biggest mobile gun that we had at the time. There weren't that many around. We were the 552nd, and there was a 551st. So in Europe, you probably had a dozen of those guns because each battery had 2.
How heavy were the shells?
The shell weighed 365 pounds.
Just the shell?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just the shell. Now, to propel that, you needed up to a maximum of 100 pounds of powder. I say powder, but they were granules, And you had a canister that was this high, and there were 4 charges in it. And depending on the range, you got your earphone that gave you the number of charges, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what governed the distance that you were firing. It had a maximum distance of 14 miles. And it was very accurate, very accurate. Our role was, I used to call it a defensive role because we were always helping other units. We had targets, but it was for some other unit. It might have been for George Patton, 3rd Army, who needed that kind of help, and he would contact us, and that's what we would do. It was very effective, very effective. It was difficult to put together. It came in 2 parts, the carriage and then the tube, and they were separate, and they needed a tank for each one to tow it. And when you reach your destination, you got your destination from the engineers, and when you reached there, you needed a construction crane to put this thing together. So it used to take us an average of 4 hours to put this thing together to operate.
What kind of damage did those shells do?
I did a lot of damage. And our targets were bridges, railroad, that kind of thing.
Now you went over on D+22.
That's correct.
And where did you go?
We landed at the Utah Beach. And now this is where I say, there were lots of errors made. We arrived at the wrong place. It was Utah Beach, but it was not where we were supposed to land. And the other thing was that we arrived too late to debark, because you had to land to get off. You had to land at high tide, so that the boat could go as far forward on the beach as possible. But then you had to wait until low tide to get off. And so we were late, so we had to spend an extra day that way. And we got off without any major problems, and landed up ahead, because by then you could do that. You could get off the ship and go right up to land, and that's what we did. And unfortunately, in the first couple of days, one of our sergeants, nice, good fellow, went off driving his truck, not being aware that it was a minefield. And he hit a mine, and that was the end of him. The truck and he were gone. So it was not a good beginning, but it was better than the drop in the water,
Yeah. So the Battle of Normandy is still happening at this point.
Yeah.
Where did you go first?
We stayed pretty well in the area that we arrived at. You had to leave there because that was to prepare for this. But you were in that area, and we participated in what was called the Battle of St. Lo at that time, which was an awful battle. The streets were blocked. We couldn't move ahead. We had to call for help with cranes and tractors to pave a road to get through, and that was a big delay. They hadn't anticipated that, and it delayed the whole operation.
How would you describe the fighting at St. Lo outside of the gridlock?
How was the fighting? It was severe, but it was all infantry. It was hand-to-hand fighting at that point. And in artillery, you don't have that. You're a little further back, and because you just can't get into the hand-to-hand fighting, so it's more defensive kind of a thing. And you get signals from all the fellows up front who are struggling and need that kind of help. But it was big stuff. We tried to destroy bridges, railroads, buildings, military buildings, and that's what we did, and it was quite effective.
I believe your next engagement was the Battle of Aachen, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that was a real bad one, and it was a kind of assignment that they needed us because we were bombing Aachen daily, something fierce, and there was nothing left of Aachen. By the time we and the others got through, there was nothing left in Aachen. The buildings were ruins. But it was a very important break that we got. And then we went on from Aachen, that was Germany actually, on to Holland. We were in Holland, and then we went on to the 4 campaigns. There were 4 campaigns during the war in Europe, and we were in part of all 4.
Wow. Now, based on the information I've seen, sometime between then, or maybe it was at Aachen, but before the Bulge, you had a very good friend named Raymond Bulge who was killed?
Yes. Yeah, that was sad. We weren't totally clear as to whether Germany had the 240. And the other thing, too, that was very important was the battle, that 240 millimeter, the old fuse detonated when it hit the ground. And you heard the saying, if you hear these things whiz through the air, and if it's coming your way, the theory was hit the ground, because once you're on the ground, when it detonates, it goes this way, so you're safe. Well, they had come out with a new fuse that detonated in midair. They would set it, and it would go in midair. Well, we were stopped in that area, and what happened was one of those bombs came in and detonated over our area. And what happens is it's all iron, and all these pieces of iron fly all over. Bolduc and his friend, you were two to a tent, and it was a rainy night, 6 o'clock in the evening, and these 2 guys were riding home to their wives, and all of a sudden one of these big bombs come in, and Bolduc got a big piece in the neck and got killed instantly. And next to him, his buddy lost both legs. Now this is just a tent, it's just yay wide, and lost both legs from another big chunk of steel. And the tent, of course, was shredded.
Okay, tell me about going to the Battle of the Bulge. How did you get that news and, okay, we're moving there now?
Yeah.
And where was your battalion set up?
Well, the problem with the Battle of the Bulge is there was utter confusion because the communication was poor, it was defective, so you're really struggling to figure out what's going on here. And as you know, we had very few people there, and we had very few trained people there. So we were really against the defensive. And Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, decided that rather than send people in one by one, let the Germans go to this given point, no further. And when we get to that point, then we will have a strong enough defense to beat them. And that worked. But I mean, it was the coldest winter of the century. We still managed to defeat their artillery, and of course the weather was bad, so we had no air support until I think it was the day before Christmas. And then Hitler had figured this, had figured bad weather, and knew that we wouldn't be able to fly. And so the day before Christmas, I think it was, something like 2,000 bombers came over because it was a nice clear day like this. And that was the end of that, because Hitler could make no progress from that point on. But it was a vicious war. To give you an idea, when one of these things landed near where we were, and the next day I wanted to see the damage it had done. And it had a 30-foot span, and the hole was, I went down in it and I had a picture taken, and I look about this big in this tremendous hole. And that's what that shell would do. So we used it effectively.
Now, from what I understand, the next fighting came at the Roer River? Or
Yes.
Soon after? Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, the engineers had built pontoon bridges across the river. And these guys were amazing. Overnight, they would build a pontoon bridge across the Elbe or the Roer, and even this heavy equipment we could get across on that pontoon bridge. It's unbelievable, because this equipment was real heavy, and we managed to get across. That was the end for Hitler. You know, he tried desperately to keep that bridge, and we got, not we, but the Allied forces got to the bridge before he did, and he had rigged that bridge to collapse, detonate. It was all geared by the Germans, and we knew that, and he wasn't able to use that because we got there first.
That's Remagen.
Yeah.
And so, was it a similar story getting across the Rhine because you had the bridge and little German resistance?
It was a similar story, yeah, because he was clever. He had rigged the bridge, all the bridges, because he knew that was the final stop. You know, if we got across the bridge, he was done. And so he knew that, and so the trick was to get to that bridge before he did, before he could do anything with it. And we were successful with that.
How did you hear that the war had ended?
The word came very quickly, and it was, I mean, everything stopped like a clock, and joy and wonderful feeling about winning the war, and the government had really planned a nice method of getting our people home, and that was an experience too, because you've got 16 million people that want to go home now. Impossible. So they used every kind of ship to ship you back. They had a point system. And I came back from Le Havre, France. Got on a ship there, and it was not a very good ship. And on the way home, we hit a storm. One of the seams let go, and water was coming in. So they slowed down to 3 knots an hour, which is really nothing. You're not gaining anything. Finally, they were able to repair it, and we got to Newport News Christmas Eve, and when we got there, when we got to Newport News, the base was closed. There was nobody there to get us off the ship. And so the chaplain radioed in, and they got a crew together to get us off the ship and prepare a dinner for us at 3 o'clock in the morning, Christmas morning. So it was a very Merry Christmas, believe me.
Definitely.
When people ask me, what I thought of my duties, I would say, well, I'm no hero. I'm just one of 16 million people who fought this war, and the fact that we all worked together brought an end to it, and that's kind of the way I looked at it. I was just glad I could do my part.